and thank you for joining me for another episode of Throwback Thursday. So, give me a second here while I get things kind of situated here. I kind of have my laptop off to the side here. I want to be able to see what it is that I am doing. Let me make sure that everything's kind of level here before we start. I'll move this down just a tad. Okay, we'll get that out of the way and make sure that everything looks good. So I apologize for my arm right there in the video. Okay, so everything looks good. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Throwback Thursday. So Throwback Thursday is where I pull out my retired stash and I create two projects using those products where it could be a stamp set, it could be a bundle, it could also be a suite. So for this one, there was actually a Friday or maybe it was a Saturday. I think it was more like a Saturday evening live that was done last year. I had a guest stamper, I have my friend Andrea. She presented and she had created two projects using this bundle. This was a bundle that at the time when she had used it, it was current. It has now since gone on the last chance list, and I don't believe any part of it is still available, but I never had the opportunity to use it. Now, if you really know me, you know that I am all about between lighthouses, tropical, nautical, that type of theme. And so when it came to this bundle, Sunrise Sailing, it was one that I definitely needed. So in this bundle, you have the Sunrise Sailing photopolymer stamp set. You have some two-step stamping here with the sailboat and with the sails on it. Words are hard. I almost forgot what it was called. You have greetings in here for congratulations, retirement, best wishes. You deserve the best. You're destined for great things, and ahoy. Along with this, another part of the bundle is the Sunrise Sailing Hybrid embossing folder along with the dies. The dies not only cut out the sailboat here, but you also have a die that'll cut out the little seagulls. You got clouds, you have a smaller sailboat. Well, you actually got three different size sailboats. You got a smaller one, a medium, and then of course this larger one. And then you have two other dies that will kind of give you like a water and a wave kind of texture with it. It just like die cuts the top part of it. It doesn't cut like on the sides of it. So again, this stamp set kind of coordinates with the embossing folder. So usually I kind of do my stamping and the embossing and the die cutting ahead of time. However, for this one, I am going to show you how this works because hybrid embossing folders are a little bit different than our regular 3D or our regular ones. You can actually put your paper and the die in there, and you can die cut and emboss at the same time. So I'm going to show you how that works. So we're going to get started with the first card. Now this one I did die cut everything ahead of time. So this one, the cards are basically the same layout. The dimensions, the card base, and then the two pieces that go on the front of the card are the same size, but the cards are completely different. So this one, we're going to actually do a little bit of ink blending on this one. So for my card base, this is basic white thick, measuring 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I have a piece of cloud cover cardstock. This measures 5 by 3 3/4. Then I have a piece of basic white. I started off with a 5.5 by a 4 1/4 inch piece. I had embossed it using the Dotted Circles 3D embossing folder, so this is still available. What I did with this, I just basically took my cardstock, I lined it up into the middle of the embossing folder, and then I ran it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and then I trimmed this down to measure 4 7/8 by 3 5/8. You know, basically trying to keep the center of this embossing, the circle, in the middle of my cardstock. So definitely a lot of dimension on this. We're going to do some ink blending on this piece. Then I have a piece of Petal Pink that measures 3 1/4 by 1/4. This will end up trimming down just a little bit once we adhere it onto our label here. So this basic white, and this was die cut out of the Stylish Shapes set of dies. These are also still available. And then ahead of time, I die cut this part of the sailboat, and then the sails. This is the medium-sized sailboat. So we're gonna glue these together to create our sailboat. And then there is one die that will die cut these little seagulls that you see flying in the distance. So those were die cut out of Secret Sea. So I'll put those over there. Hopefully we don't lose them. Okay, so I want to start off, I want to fold and burnish my card base. Let's see. My bone folder. And we'll emboss that. We're going to set that aside. We're also going to set aside our cloud cover piece. Then I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper. And I also have a few blending brushes. So I have a small one for my yellow. I have a larger one for kind of like my aqua. So the colors I'm going to use are Daffodil Delight, Pool Party, and then I got another small one here that I'm going to use with Petal Pink. So let me grab those ink colors here. And we got Pool Party. All right, so I'm going to start with Daffodil Delight and get my brush. And what I want to do is I want to put some ink on here, and then I want to brush some of it off because I don't want that really dark splotch in the middle of this. And I'm going to lightly add my Daffodil Delight into the middle section of my cardstock here. Okay, now I may come back and I may add a little more ink as I'm adding these other colors. Then I'm going to bring in Petal Pink and get that brush. Okay, do the same thing. And then I'm going to come around. Add some of this. All right. Then I'm going to come in with my Pool Party. I'm going to move that out of the way. Grab my Pool Party. And then I'm just going to fill the rest of this in, blending a little bit into that petal pink. All right. And then I'll come in again with a little bit more of my petal pink. And then a little more Daffodil Delight in the middle. Okay, there we go. Let me close these all up now. And I'm also going to bring in my Secret Sea ink because I am going to be stamping my greeting in that color. Get these out of the way. And I'll move all my brushes so that way we don't get ink all over everything. All right, so there is our ink blended panel. Then I'm going to take my liquid glue and I'm going to adhere this to my piece of cloud cover. Add. So by embossing this first, because this is a 3D embossing folder, if I would have cut my cardstock to the exact size that I needed it before I embossed it, it would actually, in one of the directions, it would shrink the size of it. So then like say either the top or bottom or the left or the right side would end up with a much larger border of that cloud cover. So that's why I embossed it first, started off with a larger piece and then trimmed it down to the size that I needed. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to bring in some ribbon. So I'm going to bring in, this is, what is this? This is the cloud cover faux linen ribbon. And I'm going to take a piece of this and I'm going to cut a piece long enough to kind of wrap this around. Okay, and then I'm going to cut another piece to where I'm going to tie a knot. All right, so let me put that aside. All right, and then I'm going to wrap this around and I'm going to kind of come right about here, because my sailboat is going to kind of adhere just over the top of that. All right, so I'm going to add a piece on this side. I'm just going to burnish that down to hold my ribbon down. And then the other side. Like so. All right, and then I'm going to take my sailboat, and the sail is going to just lay right over the top of that like so. So I'm going to add my glue to this sail part right here. And then I'm also going to bring in my silicone craft sheet as well. Okay. All right. I'll bring this in. And adhere it like so. Okay, and then this is going to get popped up, so I'm going to bring in both my small and my larger sheet of dimensionals. I think I can get one more. Oops, don't want it to poke. I don't want it sticking out from the side there. And then this one will just fit right in there like so. And then I'm going to get my take your pick tool. I find that it works a little bit easier with these smaller dimensionals. So on these smaller ones, I'm going to place a few of those down here on the bottom. So I have the flat edge in the direction of the top and the bottom. And there's this section of the bottom here that is just wide enough to put those on there where you don't see them from the front. And then I'm going to add another one up to the top of that bigger, that taller sail. Then, let's see, I'm going to take my sailboat and I'm going to adhere this onto, try and do this. Okay, there's another paper backing that went somewhere. Right there. Okay. And then this is going to go, my ribbon is, the bottom of my boat here is going to go just over the top of that ribbon. Like so. And then my sails are going to go like that just over the center part there. So we kind of got this sunset or sunrise type of feel coming through from behind our boat. Then I'm going to take that other piece of ribbon here and I'm going to tie my knot. So I'm going to come under my other piece of ribbon here. And over here, and it wants to come untied. Okay. For just a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to trim this. Don't know why my scissors are not cutting very well. These are the ones that I have specific for the ribbon. Because this ribbon, it does fray. Let's not cut my finger. Okay. Just have a little knot right there. All right, so I'll get this out of the way. And I will take this piece here and I'm going to pop this up onto my card base. Okay. Didn't get that one. All right. Get my card base here. And we will center this like so. All right, and then I'm going to take these little seagulls here, and I'm going to get my reverse locking tweezers. These are from the Embossing Editions kit, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue on the back. I'm not going to go crazy because there's not much cardstock here. And I'm going to place these down. Okay, then one more right here. And our last one. Okay, and then this one will go right over here. So I'm strategically placing these to where they're not overlapping on one of these embossed dots. So then that way they are laying flat on there. Okay, so then we are going to set this aside. I'm going to get my Stampin' Pierce mat. Put that aside. Okay, kind of move everything out of the way. And I got my label here, and then I'm going to bring in the stamp that says Best Wishes. And where's Best Wishes? Right here. Okay, and get my block. Secret Sea ink. Put that up and stamp that right there in the middle. Like so. Okay. I'm going to let that dry just a little bit before I touch that. Don't want the ink to smear. Also, I'll clean that stamp in the meantime. Okay, so then I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet again. And then I'm going to bring in my seal. Add some to the back of this. And then this petal pink, thin petal pink strip, I'm going to center that on the back like so. And line that up. Okay. And I'll press that down. And then this is going to have some dimensionals on the back of it. So let me grab a few of those. All right, and then I'm going to get my snips here. And I'm going to trim these ends at an angle. Like so. And then let's bring back in a card. And then we'll adhere this down right down here, like so. Okay, let me just slide everything out of the way. So there is our first card. So embossing, ink blending, and really love how that came out. So sunrise, sunset, one of the two. So there's our first card. Now let me bring in the stuff for our second one. So this one, it's got the same dimensions as far as the pieces go, but a little bit different. And this is where I'm going to also show you how that hybrid embossing folder also works as well. So for my card base, it is again a piece of basic white thick measuring 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25. I have, let's see, what do I have? I have a piece of Secret Sea. This measures 5 by 3 3/4. I have a piece of Pool Party two-tone cardstock. So I started off with a 5.5 by 4.25 inch piece. I used the embossing folder just by itself. I placed my two-tone cardstock. Now this is the darker side. I had that facing up, and I just lined it up, kind of centering that sailboat. And then I ran it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine using the base plate and that dark gray plate, the number 4 plate, and that's the result that I have with that. Then again, once I got done running it through the embossing machine, I then trimmed it down to 4 7/8 by 3 5/8. So then that way we have that really nice small border of the Secret Sea right behind it. Then I have what is this? This piece of basic white. And this is technically a scrap piece. Yes, I don't have a measurement for this. So this is a scrap piece. I believe this is basically like a quarter of a sheet of cardstock. So it's 5.5 by 4.25. We're going to emboss. We're going to stamp and emboss our sailboat, and we're not only going to emboss it, but we're also going to be die cutting it at the same time. And then I have a scrap strip piece here of basic white that's about 3.5 by 3/8 of an inch wide. And then with the Secret Sea cardstock, instead of having 3, I die cut 2 of those seagulls. So we're going to add those on there as well. Okay, so fold and burnish the card base. Okay, and then I'm going to set that aside. We're going to set aside the Secret Sea piece on our two-tone cardstock. Now, if the two-tone cardstock is new to you, the difference between this and our regular cardstock is that our regular cardstock, it's a little bit of a heavier weight, and the color is dyed through completely. The two-tone cardstock, we have it in every one of our current Stampin' Up! Colors. So what it basically is, it's a piece of white paper. It's not as heavy as the regular cardstock. The the darker shade of the pool party is on one side, and then you have a lighter shade on the other. So after embossing, one of the things that I've liked doing with the two-tone cardstock is when I emboss it, then I use a sanding block to lightly sand, and then these areas that are raised, it will reveal the white core that is in the center of this paper. So I'm going to lightly do this. This is a higher grit of sandpaper that's on here. So I don't want to go too hard because I don't want to rip my paper. By sanding over these raised areas, you can kind of see the detail from these clouds. So I'm not going to sand over the sailboat, just the clouds. And then I'm going to do it as well on the water here. So it kind of gives you this look as if you had embossed this with white embossing powder, but you didn't. Okay. So that's what it looks like after it's been sanded. So now this little mess that I got going on here, I'm going to bring in my lint roller, and this is one of them where once you've got stuff all over this, you can take this apart and you can just wash this off, and then it's good to go. So this is going to be the best way to pick up all of that paper fiber from doing the sanding. Okay, so we're good there. And then again, all I have to do is take the handle off, take these two end pieces off, and then just run this underwater, and it'll all be clean. Let it dry, and it's good to go. All right, so now I'm going to take this piece right here, and I'm going to glue that down to my piece of Secret Sea. Now again, because the two-tone cardstock is a thinner weight than the regular cardstock, when you do the sanding, especially if you're using a sanding block that has a much coarser grit to it, you want to kind of be gentle about it and not go crazy on sanding really hard, because you will definitely tear the paper. If you have a lighter grit sanding block, then you can do a little bit more pressure to it, but not too much, because remember, the two-tone cardstock is thinner and you will tear it if you go too hard. Okay, so I'm going to stick that down. I got a little bit of excess paper there. Okay, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to glue this down to my card base. Okay, I'll center that like so. Okay, so then we're going to do some stamping now. So I'll set that aside. Okay, so then I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Pierce mat. And on this strip, I am going to bring in Strawberry Slush ink, and then I'm also going to bring in my Secret Sea. I'm going to stamp my sailboat in the Secret Sea, and then the stripes that are on the sails, I'm going to do in Strawberry Slush. But for my little sentiment strip here, I'm going to go with You Deserve the Best. So let me get the block for that. Okay, I'll put that there. Get my strawberry slush ink. Ink this up. And the light's in my way. Hold on, let me move that over some. Okay, you don't need the whole entire piece. I just like to have it a little bit longer. I'm going to actually trim that down some. All right. Clean my stamp really quick. Squeak, squeak. All right, then for this, I'm going to get the right scissors. We don't want the ribbon scissors. And then I'm going to trim this at an angle on either end. Like so. Okay, I'll set that aside. And then let's bring in our scrap piece of basic white. And then I want to pull out my larger sailboat. And then I also want these sails right here. Okay, so I need my bigger block for my sailboat. And then this block here for my sails. Okay, so Secret Sea. Oh, and there's a piece that I forgot to pull out. So I'm going to ink this up. And I'm going to stamp this down. Okay. And then let's see, find a place to put this so I don't get ink all over everything. And then there is also a filler piece for this part of the sailboat. So let me get a block for that. Okay, and then this, I'm going to ink it up. And then I'm going to stamp off right down here. And then I am going to stamp right inside like so. So I just have a lighter shade of the Secret Sea in there. Okay, and then for the sails, we'll ink this up. And then I'm going to stamp this right. Like so. All right, so let me clean these stamps really quick. This disc, it fills up very, very quickly with stuff. And I don't know about you, but when there's a lot of stuff like all cluttered around you, well, one, you tend to lose things, and two, it just makes it a little bit harder to work. At least for me, that's what happens. For some people, they can work great in that type of situation. So let me move these stamps out of the way. Move it out of the way. All right, so now I'm going to show you the part where we're going to emboss, and we're going to die cut that at the same time. So I am going to, bring in the embossing folder. Okay, and then in the set of dies, there's 2 sheets in here, so you have the 2 panels that are only going to like cut this top part on them. This is for like the top of your waves. And then you have your more detailed dies where you can die cut your medium-sized sailboat, your smaller one. You have your clouds. You have this one die that'll die cut the 3 seagulls at the same time. And then of course you have this one here that is going to die cut that sailboat. So let me kind of move some things out of the way here. I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And we will put that right there. And then I'm going to bring in my base plate. So plate number 1. And then the 3D embossing plate, which is the gray plate, and it's number 4. So let's put this down here. Kind of running out of room. All right, so then on the side of the embossing folder that the Stampin' Up logo is on, I am going to open this up. I'm going to place my die with the cutting edge facing up on it, and it'll like lock in place. And then I'm going to take my cardstock, just kind of put that in there for a moment. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to take this and it's sliding off. See, when you do it on camera, what happens is that things are not exactly going to want to cooperate here. And I'm struggling now. Okay, so I kind of got that locked in place. I'm trying to do this so I can show you how to do this, but I am clearly like way too close to the camera. So I'm going to take my cardstock, and then I'm just going to kind of put this into place, kind of slide it, kind of holding it at the same time, so then that way my die doesn't slip. All right, so I think we have it. So it's lined up like so. Okay, close it up. And then I want to put the spine part of the embossing folder in first. Put my plate over it. And then run it through my machine. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Use this. Get this out of the way. Okay, and then here we go. We have our sailboat. You can see that there is a little bit of like dimension in that because it does both embossing and cutting at the same time. So again, this embossing folder, you can use it by itself, or you can use it in conjunction with the large sailboat die. All right, so let me get this out of the way. Let's bring back in our card. I'm going to take some dimensionals and put that on the back of my sailboat. Okay. All right, let me get my smaller ones. And I take your pick tool and get some of these smaller ones. those there. Down there. Okay. Let's remove these. And then we'll place this right over the top of that embossed sailboat. All right. And then this is going to lay right over the top. Like so. Okay, and then the You Deserve the Best, we're going to pop that up. So I'm going to get my little mini dimensionals for this. Okay. All right, and then this is going to go right here. So in a way, the cards are kind of similar as far as the layout goes, but are still different. All right, so let me get my little seagulls here and get my tweezers. And then if you can see on here from the embossing, you can see there's the two seagulls right there. I'm going to kind of cover those up with these. I'll place this one right over here. And then this one will go right over here. Okay, let me close that up and kind of move some things out of the way. So there's our second card. Again, using the two-tone cardstock, embossing it by itself with the embossing folder, and then using a sanding block to lightly sand over that to reveal the outline of the clouds, and then also the waves that are in the water. And then using that same embossing folder with the die, that die cuts this large sailboat out, and you can see that it does add like a little bit of dimension to the sailboat itself. So a very simple, clean, and that's not even straight, is it? That looks a little crooked. Let's just kind of, let's just fix that so it looks a little bit straighter. There we go. There's that second card. All right, and then the first one, we again used an embossing folder, a different one, embossed it, and then used the blending brushes to blend some Daffodil Delight, Petal Pink, and Pool Party inks to create like either a sunrise or a sunset. Nice little touch with that cloud cover ribbon. And so that's our first card. And as you can see, the layouts are kind of the same, but they're also different as well. So if you like the projects that I had made using the Sunrise Sailing Bundle, again, this bundle, it is retired. I don't think there's any part of it that is still available because it's been retired for not too long, but for a bit. Um, and also, I have lots of other video content out there. I have well over like I think like 355, including this video, of videos that are out there. A lot of them cover, I do my Throwback Thursday. So every week I do a Throwback Thursday with retired product, creating 2 projects. Every Friday, I go live at 6 p.m. and I create 3 projects using, of course, current product. Tomorrow night, when I go live, I will be using the Homemade Sweetness suite of products that is currently in our, I believe it's the March online exclusives. That's the one that has like that large jam jar die that's in it. So that is going to be tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central Time. On the first of each month, I do a monthly Christmas card inspiration video. I give you a little bit of inspiration of doing like 2 fairly simple duplicatable cards. And that's to give you inspiration if you want to do your Christmas cards throughout the year and get them done early rather than when it gets too late into December. Then I also subscribe to Paper Pumpkin. So when I get my Paper Pumpkin kit, the one for March, I haven't gotten it quite yet. I believe that it will be, I should be getting it soon. So that video may post if I can get it by Saturday, then at some point this coming weekend, I will then post that. I do an unboxing and then I create one of each of the projects that are in that kit. And then I did do a special holiday one, only because I forgot to take the St. Patrick's Day related stamp sets that we currently have, and I didn't put it in like as a Friday night live video. So that one I had actually posted on Tuesday. So that video is definitely up and out there. So there's a lot of different variety of card making videos and things that I have done. My Friday Night Lives, I also create free PDFs that'll have a list of supplies. It'll have pictures of the projects, descriptions like when it comes to stamping or coloring, what colors I use. And you find the link for that in my Friday night live videos in the description. There is a paragraph that's right above the list of supplies. If you click on that, it takes you to my Google Drive. You can download that free PDF, and the date that is in that PDF. If you click on that, that is going to take you back to the video in which I created those projects. So a little freebie from me. I also do have a monthly newsletter. In that newsletter, I do have a list of the video content that I'm going to be doing for that month. So everything from my Throwback Thursdays and my Fridays and all that, that is in there. Things that I may be doing here in the studio, promotions and stuff that Stampin' Up is doing. If you want a catalog or you want to see what the new kits collection are going to be, Stampin' Up comes out with either 2 or 3 new kits in their kits collection every month. Everything is kind of like in that newsletter. So if you would like to receive that, there is a link for that too in the description of the video. When you click on it, you just add your first and last name along with your email address. And then once you're on my list, when I go to send it out, you will receive it. Now, I only send out pretty much for the most part one per month, and it's usually the first Tuesday of the month. However, sometimes when we get to the middle of the month, Stampin' Up! May come out with, like, say, a free shipping promotion or a joining special or something. At that point, I would then send out another modified newsletter just to give you the information, letting you know what is happening, what's going on. Also, in regards to liking the video, there's if you haven't already done so, you can subscribe, you comment, share All those things really do help in getting my videos out there in front of other fellow paper crafters. So it not only helps in growing this channel, it also helps in building my Stampin' Up! Business as well. And all of those things, they do help tremendously, and I truly, truly appreciate it. So, thank you so much for stopping by and watching this episode of Throwback Thursday featuring the Sunrise Sailing Bundle. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.